Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It has been a very long time since I've posted anything. I've been moving house, coaching full-time, training and competing, and that has taken up all of my time and energy. So YouTube has been on the back burner, but we're back. Today, I want to do a follow along of the active warm-up that I use when I am training. So I kick things off with a little bit of gross motor. So we've got 2 laps of running forward, 2 laps of running backwards, and then we do a sideways run that is a shuffle, and then I do a sideways run that is also known as a karaoke, where your legs cross in front and behind. You face the same direction both ways when you're going sideways, so that you cover leading with your right leg and leading with your left leg. So at the moment, I am training for hopefully another season of AGC, where I will hopefully be competing as a pro again this year. It was super fun last year, and so I really hope that I can keep up my training and not get too snowed in with working to be able to compete again. So you saw that I did a row of running, kicking my bum. Then we're moving on to knee to chest pulls. You could probably add in a couple of steps in between each rep here. You don't have to go step, knee, step, knee. You could go knee to chest, step, step, knee to chest, step, step, so that you're not doing so many reps and moving so slowly. But with this one, you want to keep your balance, pull that knee up nice and high, just so you're getting your hip through that range of motion in an active manner. Next up, we've got hammy sweeps. So these are so good for getting those hammies just that little bit longer. You want to make sure that as you do it, you're thinking about reaching your hands as far back and down as you can. So if you can reach the floor with straight arms, you want to bend your arms so that you're getting that hammy lengthened all the way out, and then you can also stick your chest out a little bit, and that's going to help increase the stretch. Then we've got a step, lunge, and overhead reach. As you're doing this, you want to think about as that you step into that lunge position, thinking about tucking your tailbone under, getting your back nice and flat so that you are increasing the stretch through the front of your quad and your hip flexor. So it's going to be active because it's going to use your glutes to tuck that tailbone under, and then you're pressing your hips forward. And then you want to imagine as you pull that arm up overhead, you want to imagine someone's pulling that arm up towards the ceiling as you're doing that lean over. And then we've got opposite arm to leg kick. So you want to try to get that leg as high as you can and turn your torso. So turning your shoulders as much as you can in the opposite direction, so that we're getting a little bit of T-spine mobility in a nice active way. Then we're going to, that's the end of the rows, we're going to move into some hammy stretches and like downward dog and things like that, where we're going to open up hammies, shoulders, ankles, and calves. And we're going to do some scat push-ups. So you're going to go downward dog into a push-up position. Scat push-up is where you let your shoulder blades sink towards each other, like towards your spine, and then you press them back out again, but you're not bending your arms stay straight. So you're going to go scat push-up, walk into a hamstring stretch. You're going to bend one leg and then bend the other leg. And as you do this, you should feel it stretch your ITB and down the outside of the opposite leg. Walk those hands back out into your downward dog. So we're really trying to get those shoulders opening and those heels go down to the ground. Do a couple of reps of those, and then you're going to go into some kicks. As you can see, my right leg is my more dominant leg. So I've got a much larger range of motion in those kicks. I'm going to do, I think I did 5 on each side. Then we're going to go to downward dog, opposite ankle reach. Once again, this is going to stretch the outside of your quad and your hammies, and it's getting that little bit of rotation through your spine. Then one of my favorites that I really think is underused, especially in gymnastics, is a standing deep lunge. So when I do this, I think about getting my shin in a vertical line, but letting my hips sink as low to the floor as I can without letting that back leg collapse. So you want to get hips really, really low, trying to get that shin vertical, bend through your ankle and your big toe at the back. And then when you do the reach, you want to try to get your spine as straight as you can. So belly button up and away from that front quad and that front thigh. And then if you want to increase the challenge, you can add that reach back, which like feels so, so good. Then we're going to rotate out into a really, really wide stance. And we're going to go into some Cossacks. So you're trying to keep your supporting leg, the foot of the supporting leg flat on the floor, and you want to try to lower with control. So we're not like bouncing down and letting that hip drop onto your heel. You want to lower with control and get as far down as you can, and then push back up with as much power as you can. And then hang out. Once you've done 5 reps each side, you're just going to hang out in that deep lunge. I'm pressing my knee outwards with my elbow and letting my bum sink closer to the floor. So you should feel it stretch a whole lot in the inside of that straight leg. Then we're coming back up to a standing straddle, and you're going to do 5 reach through to open shoulders, and then 5 windmills where you're trying to get those those shoulders rotated as much as possible. All right, down on the floor into straddle. I like to do a straddle where I reach to one side with both hands, so my belly button and torso are facing the floor or facing my leg. And then I like to do an overhead reach as well, and that's going to change the areas of your body that are getting stretched. So the first one will stretch your hammy primarily. The second one might stretch down your lats and down your side of your body into your obliques. Then we're going down into a pancake. So keeping those knees up to the ceiling as you're letting your belly button, your ribs, and your shoulders go down to the floor with as straight a spine as possible. Hang out there for about 10 seconds, and then you're going to go into some active lowers. So you can do these with your arms straight overhead like I'm doing, or you can do them with your hands on your head, or you can do them with your arms across your chest. But the goal here is to get your chest flat without letting your hands touch the floor. So you're using your muscles to lift you up and let you sink back down. Then legs come together into a pike stretch. I'm doing this with my hands on the floor, so I'm not pulling myself lower by grabbing onto the soles of my feet. It's almost like I'm trying to push my hands further forward in the pike stretch. And then we do open shoulders and then reach forward. I do 5 reps of those. Trying to think about when those arms go up overhead, you're trying to get your hands as far behind your head as you can. Then we're going to go into some hammy lowers. So you can see I've got the back of my calf. This is my dominant side, so I'm going to have a bigger range of motion here. I do 10 lowers. You can see that my leg that is going down, those muscles are turned on, the quad is engaged, and that leg that is closest to my face is where the predominant amount of stretch is happening, and it's actually quite intense. So if that's too much for you, you might need to hold behind your hammy, behind your knee, and let that leg soften so it's not so straight. But ideally that leg stays nice and straight. Then we're going into 10 hammy sweeps. I absolutely love these, and it's another one that I think is really underrated in gymnastics. Feels so good on my glutes, my ITB, and my spine. And you can see as you do them, I do 10 reps each side, you can see the range of motion really increase as you go. Then we're flipping over into some seal through to cat stretch. So with the seal, you can see when I'm pushed up that I'm pulling my shoulders away from the base of my skull. So we shouldn't have our shoulders scrunching up towards our ears at the top of that seal. And I really, really struggle with this, but you are trying to keep your heels and your legs together when you're in that seal position. And then I push back to the cat stretch so you can have your glutes all the way back on your heels and trying to get your armpits flat to the floor. But you can see that I've got my hips up quite high because I am trying to get that larger range of motion through my T-spine and my shoulders. And then I do a little bit of a body roll on the way back to try to get every vertebrae in my spine mobilized as much as possible. And then we're going into scorpions. I also think these are really underutilized in gymnastics. They open up that anterior or front of the body and create that little bit of rotation through the spine that I think feels really, really great and I really lack. I am a strong gymnast. Like, strength is my strength as opposed to flexibility. There are obviously a lot of gymnasts that are more flexible than strong. I'm a strong gymnast and I really, really struggle with anterior flexibility, which is the front of my body. So those scorpions where you're trying to pull your opposite foot to the opposite arm really open up through your hip, your stomach, and your quad, and they feel awesome. Now we're moving into my splits sequence. So I started there with an active hip flexor stretch where I grabbed my back foot and brought it up towards my heel. That really increases the lengthening through your hip flexor and your quad. Then I stepped into a deep lunge and then did some T-spine rotations in the deep lunge. Now we're up to a 7 or a pigeon stretch, and I'm doing active pigeon push-ups, which is stretching through that glute of that front leg. And then this is my less dominant leg, so I'm really uncomfortable here, but we're flat, so I'm not complaining. But we're going to hang out in splits for 30 seconds. If you're not flat in your splits, you have a couple of options. You can prop a yoga block under your hamstring of your front leg, or I really like having my hands up on blocks either side. It makes it so much more comfortable and way less torture. Then you would have seen that after I finished my 30 seconds in splits, I did a little bit of an asymmetric split where I lay down on my tummy and I grabbed my back leg. Once again, I'm really tight through my quad and my hip flexor, so I find that one a great way to open up those two joints or muscles in without using my spine. So a lot of the time when you try to stretch your quad and your hip flexor, your spine is also contributing to the range of motion, whereas when you lie down flat, no spine equals a little bit more intensity through that quad and hip flexor. Then we swapped over to the other leg. So this is my dominant side. So you're going to see a way bigger range of motion here. My hips are probably going to go a lot lower and I just feel less pain when I stretch this side. Once again, we had that active hip flexor and quad stretch where my heel came up towards my bum. Then we go into deep lunge with those T-spine rotations. And then we're into our pigeon push-up. I think I do 5 reps here. This is stretching my glute of my front leg. When you're in that pigeon position, you want to make sure that you're not just leaning on that front leg and letting everything tilt to that side. And the closer you have your front foot to your hips, the less it's going to stretch. The further away from your front hip you have that front foot, the more it's going to stretch through that glute. Then we've got splits, ideally with arms up off the ground. And then once again, this is that hip, hammy, and even the adductors get a little bit of an opener in that position. So I hang out there for a little bit. Then we're going into adductor rocks. So if you are tighter, your hips will be higher, and you can do this on your hands. And that line of your quad to your knee is going to be a little bit more vertical. But if you are a gymnast or if you have more mobility through your hips, you can see that my hips are very, very low to the ground. You want to do 10 rocks each side, and you want to, as your hips sink down towards your back heel, you're going to feel a stretch through the inside of that straight leg. Then everybody's favorite middle splits. Hang out here for about 30 seconds. Then finish your warm-up with some bridge work. Hopefully now you feel ready to tackle a training session. Thanks for joining me for this active warm-up follow-along. Please like and subscribe and pop in the comments anything else you want to know.